Brian Wang has decided to create a lot of excitement on X over the last couple of days. Not everybody agrees with Brian. This is unusual. So, Brian,
Hmm.
you saw a Model Q or what might be a Model Q. You saw it on somebody else's site and appeared to you
Hmm.
that it might be the real thing. And so you did some research and some analysis, and
Yeah,
and then everybody's some people are saying, "Hey, go Brian," and other people are going, not so much. Tell us,
right.
tell us what you're seeing, what you're thinking.
Okay, so it was on a drone video by 𝐒𝐬𝐿 in the Wilderness, who flies drones over Fremont. And so just so we had that first one, and so now we see here the the top one is from the drone video, and this is comparing to the other car, and it seems to be 8 inches longer. Sorry, 8 inches shorter
Okay.
than the regular car. I should stop this slideshow from um, happening. Um, so basically, the when you look at the the picture of the vehicle, it seems shorter. And I put through AI analysis, it says that it is like one third of a wheel shorter.
I
So
see.
one third of a wheel is 8 to 9 inches,
Okay.
right? When I try and get the things side by side and say, okay, get the, wheel size is about the same, it seems to be 4 inches shorter from the front, 4 inches shorter from the back. And also the window curve seems to be more steep,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So, based upon that, it seems to be a slightly different, slightly more compact car,
Okay. All right.
right? And the AI, ChatGPT, agrees with me, right? It's smaller, and it says specifically it's a third of a wheel shorter,
Right.
right? Um, so that was the other analysis. So then the current Model Y is 187 inches long. So 179 inches would be how long this one would be. So that would be, from 4.75 meters to 4.55 meters. And based on that, you would probably be able to take out 300 pounds. It would have maybe as little as 60 kilowatt hour battery pack,
Right.
which would, be about, up to 20% less. And then you could have slightly less range. And then, you'd have slightly less acceleration. And then you can maybe get the base price down by 30%. Maybe if you do the right choices, maybe get down from 44,000 to 35,000 in the United States, maybe get from 36,000 to 25,000 in China. So
Okay.
one, it seems like the car is there. It makes a lot of sense to do this. So um, that's what I'm saying. And then the video, it looks slightly shorter. Um, so I haven't had time to look at what everyone says. I think some people agree with me. I think Brian White agrees with me. Thinks that I'm onto something. Some other people think so. In terms of the other thing is that Bradford Ferguson indicated that suppliers. He talked to a supplier, indicating that they're ramping up production. So whatever the new vehicle is, it seemed like they're getting ready to release it on schedule late June.
Okay. All right.
So.
Okay. So now this vehicle, as best as you could tell from those shots, was there any um, stylistic difference in terms of the hood, the front fenders, the back fenders, or was that camouflaged?
That was camouflage. So the basically from other than the passenger compartment, everything else was covered. Like when I was sharing that, the front and back were covered completely.
Okay. So then if we had a 6 inch, 8 inch shorter vehicle that also might have some stylistic changes to the front end and the back end to differentiate it, that would be pretty much all we need in order to have a less expensive version that would be differentiated. Is that kind of your
Right.
okay?
Right. That's my conclusion. Because one, if the um, Gary Black or the other people who are doubting are saying that it's basically just a lower trim,
Right.
that you decontent, you
Right.
remove stuff, make things cheaper, kind of like the $70,000 Cybertruck,
Mhm.
right? Where basically I just took stuff out, I made it cheaper, and that's it. It's still the same vehicle, the body is all the same pretty much. the tonneau cover was different, but it was not, and thus it was $10,000 cheaper,
Right.
right? So we could have had a base model like that, and sometimes we kind of had them and then they got taken away,
Mhm.
and it was $5,000 cheaper. So doing that would have there would be no reason to wait. Like, why would
Ah,
you need
yes.
to wait if
Yeah.
that was all you were doing,
Yeah.
right? So the people who say that no, 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 it's only cheaper seats, cheaper this, cheaper that, same body, same platform. It's like, well, then why did you wait at all? Because we've been waiting 18 months, 2 years for this, you know, lower cost version of the
Right.
vehicle,
Right.
which, yes, it's on Model 3 Model Y line and it's significantly the same, but it would make sense to substantially make it lighter and to do I don't think it takes that much to make it 8 inches shorter, just changing the back. Like you're looking at, certain parts on the trunk,
Mhm.
certain parts in the front, and then you've gotten substantially different. And you've gotten the weight down. So,
So your analysis bringing the price down in the United States to $35,000, did that include any uh, uh reduction in the
credits and stuff, no.
no,
That
okay.
that's pre-credits.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But did it include any d diminishing of features and whatnot within the car? Did it
Yeah,
cheap?
yeah. I'm assuming certain amounts of reduced features in the car.
Okay, okay.
Right.
So like for instance, maybe cheaper tires, cheaper seat,
Yeah.
etc. Okay, all right.
Right, right, right.
So now, is it possible by even taking out more stuff to get it under 35,000, or do you think that's kind of the maximum
No, I think if they're really creative, they can get it down to 30,000.
down to 30? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe even like 29. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
how aggressive do you want to go, right? Um, I'm presuming that they wouldn't want to. Yeah. So one, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's, an even more
Right.
hatchbacky type thing
Right.
where you drop that trunk entirely, you drop the weight even more, right? If there's another vehicle out there that could be even cheaper, just this thing, 8 inches is different, some amount of weight, is it the analysis of if I made it 8 inches cheaper, I asked them, like the AI to do it. Because I've done that kind of thing and I have the AI do it as well,
Right.
right? So it's kind of like, um, a third party kind of checking for me
Right.
of like this makes sense, right? So the AI makes sense. To me, it makes sense. Like there's all kinds of ways to get the cost down, right? And while still keeping the same lines while doing like the other way to get even more out of it would be to not have the paint.
Hmm.
I thought you could get, if you're going to use the Cyber Cab, um, you know, sheet molded compound
Hmm.
thing, you could take another 5 grand by doing that,
Hmm.
right? So you could then have no paint. You would everything would be the same except for the outer shell,
Hmm.
and then you would go do the forming of the other shell, and then you come back into it. So that would take out $5,000, and it would also save on the time and cost. But you would not use the paint; it would be a slightly different path down the factory to make that other vehicle, right? So um, that would be a way to get to a substantially cheaper vehicle. And also, I would think that the body of the Fabric Cab is lighter than
Yeah.
the body of the Model Y.
So then on this particular version that you showed us on the slides, was that a Model Y that had been made shorter?
It looked like so if we go back to it again, um, it so we have the top one is the more compact one,
Right.
slightly shorter. Again, it's
Right.
not huge differences, 4 inches on each side, right? So basically, you're trimming off from about the this back part of the near the wheel,
Mhm.
and you're making this a little bit. So it's not huge amounts of shaving, right?
Sure.
It's 4 inches off
Sure.
each off
Sure.
the front and the back, right? And maybe this is slightly tighter in between,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But it looks pretty similar. So and the rest of the body, the top and the curve, it looks very much like a Model Y,
Okay.
right? So
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 would
that goes to that's not a three or something else substantially different.
so then using your same formulations, would you be able to get as much off of a Model 3 by making a Model 3 8 inches shorter?
Yeah, I think you could get the same amount off a Model 3 by making it shorter and smaller. Yeah, and then you would have common front and back for your new vehicles. I'm adding in, some slightly different um, frunk and trunk,
Mhm. Mhm.
in order to shorten it up, like just whatever the pieces are that make it shorter. So just, some minor part differences there to make both the 3 and the Y shorter.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, all right. So this sounds very much in line, and the fact that it's being tested right now would seemingly put production, though. I think, is it you or Brian White that is commonly trying to assess how long it would actually take to have them on the road based on when you first start seeing them in being test driven? Would be maybe 90 days from now, something like that. Is your understanding?
I would think that you would introduce them, have a reveal day, in June in order to
Huh?
qualify for the first half, right?
Right.
I'm assuming that they could do that.
Mhm.
And then they would then, order them and then start getting a few out in July, late July, is
Okay.
my thinking.
Okay.
That would how I would see it. But if they're late, slips into July that they announce it, and then
August.
August that they do it, so it's roughly that kind of time frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to care once we have really good solid confirmation that it's coming.
Yeah.
When we get the reveal, that's going to be the big deal. Okay, is there anything else on the Model Q?
No, that's basically it. Like I know that it's gotten, over 250,000 views
Views.
on my X site and stuff, and then other on my video and on my website. But and the fact that some people disagree, I can see that
Yeah, yeah,
basically it's not super different, right? But
yeah,
that's why I made it look shorter to me visually, right?
yeah.
And I'm trying to line it up, but then having the AI said, assuming the wheels are the same size,
Right.
right? That you got the same wheels on this thing, then, here's how big it is. And if the wheels aren't the same size, it's like, everything else is thrown off. It's like it's not the same height, it's not the same this, it's not, it's just it becomes weird.
All right. Well, I want to throw, if we're done with that one, I do want to throw
Yep,
something at
I'm
you that
done.
I've been thinking about all week that has
Sure.
absolutely nothing to do with Tesla. But you and I have spent an awful lot of time talking about war and peace and weapons and things of that nature. And I was
Hmm.
totally intrigued this week to see that Israel has been shooting down drones with lasers.
Okay.
I've been following lasers since I think 1968, 1967, something like that, when I
Hmm.
first was down at the Santa Monica Pier, and there was this little
Hmm.
shop underneath the pier, like out totally out in the middle of, where nobody knew it existed. And they were
Hmm.
doing some of the first laser holograms in there. And
Hmm.
I was intrigued as a, you know, 20-year-old at that point by the whole laser
Hmm.
thing and followed it for all these years. But this idea of having, these super laser weapons that can, pierce steel and whatnot, we hear about this and we hear about this and we hear about this. But this is the first time I feel like I've seen something where the laser was used in the field in war, and they said actually slicing off the wings of these drones. So
Hmm.
what are we dealing with here, Brian? Are you up on this, or is there uh,
I have not been following this super closely, but I have followed lasers against drones for
right?
a long time. So there have been, 5, 10 years now, um, putting it onto Navy ships, where they get some really big drone, and also onto trucks or other things, that or Humvees, that kind of thing. They put lasers on there that can take out drones. Taking out a drone with a laser, in the 10 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt range, you can definitely take out drones, particularly cheap, small drones that are being used by Hamas,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
If you have a really big drone, like someone's trying to shoot down, one of the US Predator drones, something like that, which are
Right.
more the size of a Cessna or
Yeah.
bigger,
Yeah.
right? Or size, almost as big as F-16, then you need something bigger. And particularly if it's faster moving, right? Then you have to hold your targeting on it longer in order to burn through it and to take it out, right? Um, but I presume that Israel's using stuff in the easy to build and deploy 10 to 50 kilowatt range, max probably 100 kilowatts on that. And the fact that these have been around for a while, it's just a whether of who's has the need to destroy drones in the field. Israel does, so they roll it out faster. Just like they rolled out their anti-mortar technology, which was that someone would fire something at the computer control and launch a counter projectile that would then take out the RPGs, the rocket propelled grenades,
Right,
right?
right.
So they deployed that first too because they had the urgent need to do it,
Yes.
right? So the fact that they're the first ones to like, hey, we need it, let's deploy it. It's also similar to the US testing a lot of weapons in the Ukraine-Russia war. So we're not sending boots on the ground, but we're sending the technology over there. And it's kind of like, hey, I want to test a weapon. Hey, I'll sell it to them. You can sell it to them, and they can test your weapon against other things, right? So they're both testing grounds of all the latest gear. So
Sure.
the vast majority, if you could test your gear,
Hmm.
then it's probably gone to Ukraine, it's gone to Israel, and they're testing it. They're using it for real because, hey, we're fighting someone. Let's test a weapon. So,
Yeah, and on a related subject, again, I'm hitting you with this stuff that you may or may not have even seen the article, but Lucky
mhm.
Palmer and Bezos,
Andrew,
Jeff
yeah.
Jeff yeah, Adderall, and then Jeff Bezos apparently have hooked up back again. I guess Lucky used to work for him years ago, and now they're going to make a helmet and a military helmet which will give these soldiers heads up and all kinds of stuff. That sounded like a pretty interesting deal as well.
Yeah, I'm I'm not kept up to date on the latest thing there as to what Andrew's doing with Jeff Bezos. But Anduril's partnering with a lot of different companies, and that's Lucky Palmer's company. So they're doing a lot of drones, a lot of hypersonic rocket
I keep
engines,
calling him
a
Lucky
lot of technology.
Palmer. It's Palmer Lucky, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. By the way, I just looked it up. So the laser that Israel using was 10 kilowatt class. So kind of on the low end again, which was again enough to take out small drones.
Right.
And then Rafael is their military company that does a lot of their high-tech weapons. So yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's jump back to Robotaxi for a minute.
Mhm.
So there's been a tremendous amount of conversation the last few days. I guess Larry Goldberg and Gary Black are going to have a big debate next week about the rollout and about who what the competition looks like and such. And one of the things that's come up in the last couple of days and a couple of hours ago, I released a video with Larry and I talking about the charging infrastructure for a million. I mean, Elon's saying he'll have a million of these vehicles out on the road by 18 months from now. And all of a sudden
Mhm.
I started doing the math and I'm like, how's he going to do a million of these guys if they're going to have to charge them up every day? Larry says that they won't use the charging structure in the superchargers because they're a little too rough on the batteries to be charging them up every night that much, and also because he doesn't think there'll be enough of them. So they will be using the chargers that we buy for our homes that go off the 220. Does that sound right to you? I just was curious to see.
Yeah, so I was running the numbers on that and running the analysis of charging up those million vehicles, and this goes to the need to get people signed up so they can solve the cleaning and the charging of the vehicles.
Right.
And if you were doing it from your home and said,
Mhm.
okay, I want to run my own Tesla like a ride sharing robotaxi vehicle, then I want to do a few hundred miles of that. You can get probably because consuming the Model Y, Model 3, you haven't gone to the Cybercab yet. Then from your home you could get if you have solar on your roof, 300 miles worth of Robotaxi, but you wouldn't be able to do the 24-hour service,
Yeah.
right? That you'd have to step it down to a lower level, right? And then if you had other people, hotels, other things with a lot of these low-level chargers all over,
Mhm.
it would spread it out around the grid. It would, have this extra demand. But if you're looking at 1 million vehicles and you're saying, okay, 50,000 miles total or less, because if you're doing it for, 20, 30,000 miles because it's, less overall activity, because you're doing it part-time and you have this charging issue, and maybe you're not devoting my entire extra solar power to that vehicle,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Then, you're looking at, say, an average of 30,000 miles per vehicle. So that'd be 30 billion miles. So
Mhm.
30 billion miles, if you're getting 5 miles per kilowatt hour or four, probably four would be the more conservative thing, driving it hard, plus not every mile's um, you can get paid for. So that would be about what, um, 8 billion, 8 terawatt hours probably of extra charging. So it is a substantial logistical infrastructure problem, which is why they need to start
Bill.
getting it, people
Right.
figuring it out how to do it, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I got surprised, you hey, it's all working," and rolling out. That's why, for me, I was always saying that they needed to do more in advance to get this problem solved, to people to make the arrangements.
So let's think about that for a minute. So the current I have just the charger that came with my car, so it's like 4 to 5 kilowatts per hour, or 4 or 5 miles per hour for
Mhm.
recharging. So in 24 hours I can only get 120. No, 24 hours, 12 hours I can get 60, right? Yeah, so only
Yeah.
124 miles in 24 hours. So that's not fast enough. My recollection was that the 220 ones are about 5 times that much. Is that right? So it's like 25 miles an hour of charging. Is that about right?
Okay. Sounds about right. Yeah,
Sounds
I'm not
about right.
sure.
So 25 miles an hour. So if you're going to charge that for 12 hours, that would be okay. So maybe you're talking more like 8 hours if you want to charge it for 200 miles.
So I don't think the charging is the limitation on it, like to the charging speed coming out of it. It's the fact that how much is the grid and the source letting me do it and at what price, right? Like for me personally
Yeah.
in California
Yeah.
with PG&E,
Yeah.
if I start using way more power than my solar can provide and
Yeah.
I start sucking out the grid, they're charging me like 35, 40 cents per
Uh,
kilowatt hour. And then that 8,000 extra kilowatt hours end up costing
a lot.
like $4,000, $5,000,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's just the having to, and then also PG&E does not have a lot of extra power for me,
Okay. Okay.
right? So it would rapidly hit that, okay, our you know power plant grid can't handle this extra
Right.
power, particularly during the summer, where people are running a lot of air conditioning and a bunch of other stuff,
Sure.
right? So it's where you need to have the power, like the fact that there could be power out in you know Montana or Alaska or Colorado, other places. If the usage is heaviest in California, Texas, and Florida, or
Right.
something like that, where the robotaxis are in New York or that kind of thing, it's, do I have the power right there? And if I go to the grid, then what are they charging me? And then they can have the stair step the usage of, like,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
gonna charge you a freaking buck for it.
Yes.
So it goes way over the price,
Yes.
right? So that is the problem, that maybe to send that thing out 50 miles to, for me, like Vallejo or something like that. I have to
Right.
go park in Vallejo, charge it in Vallejo
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
order if I have extra power for me to come back and then do the ride. So they have to drive 60 miles back, 60 miles out, 60 miles back. And so I only get like half
Yeah.
of the thing, but it'd be worth it because my power might be 4 times cheaper,
All right, so
right?
where I'm going with this, because this is happening real time, folks. I mean, this is a true brainstorming session. So what I'm
Yeah.
going with this is, if I am thinking about putting one car out, maybe two cars out into the system, I'm talking about just the private individuals think about doing this. it seems based on this conversation that if you don't already have solar, you'd be wise, or if you bought your solar on your put it on your roof in terms of the normal way you do it of 90% or 110% of usage, but you still have enough more square footage available on your roof, it would seem like at this point, if you want to do this thing, you might be better off to go ahead and either put solar on your roof, max it out, and
Max out your solar, yes.
yeah, or if you have partial solar now, max it out. So one way or the other, take advantage of the power that you can get off your roof would be important. And then that would also mean probably putting in a power wall or two or three in order to balance your loads and whatnot. So this could be a like a systemic or systematic method that people are maybe not thinking about, that if you really want to do this right, have your max out your solar, put on however many power walls make sense, then you can decide how much power can I get? Can I do one car? Can I do two cars? If I if
Mhm.
I moderate it during the day where I have two cars that are charging overnight, but I have another car that's charging during the day. All these kind of
Mm.
things might be up for analysis as somebody thinks of
Yeah.
making this extra money.
Right. And then you could also say, hey, my friend or something like that who has another house by me,
Yeah,
they don't have solar on their place. I could say, hey, I'll pay the 40 grand, 50 grand in order to max out your solar and your power walls. And then I will charge my two vehicles with you. Right.
yeah.
So, and I know people who have EVs who charge at their neighbor's place because
Oh
they,
wow.
so people are doing that in small numbers, but this would be a driving thing to that. But again, it goes to if you're going to pop a million cars on there and you need to do this for 200,000 of them, then they got to, you know, do this build of solar on roofs and power walls or solar on some field. You can talk to some farmer who has
Yeah, yeah.
a few acres. Okay, I want to solar this all out. I'm going to stick a parking lot, or you can do even cheaper than cheaper surfaces, where you do a kind of parking lot, cheaper version. You dump some of this gravelly dirt down there that can, you know, still cover it and make it work. So that would make a cheaper capital expense to do that. But you can
Yeah.
talk to different people to get the power out there. But it involves building stuff, and people decide, hey, I'm going to do it. I need to then make that arrangement and then have it happen. Otherwise, there'll be this, 6 month year delay, and then also would make the whole construction process, supply chain, I'm suddenly going to hit, you
Yeah,
know,
everybody's going to be
all
doing
these
it.
places.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. So that would be yeah. So I hope we're doing a service right now of talking to folks who have been thinking about doing this, but you haven't been thinking about your power requirement, because I think it's we've covered a lot here, but one of the problems that I hadn't even begun to think about is the step up that you get on your power bill based on your usage. You get X amount for practically free, but if you go over that amount, man, it jumps up really quick. And then if you go above that amount, man, you can really get
Yeah.
nailed.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So and then of course, if you do all those things, then you also have the possibility of being part of these power consortiums as well. What do they call those? The where they can
Cooperatives, what I mean.
yeah, what do they call it?
I'm not sure. Just energy cooperative. Yeah.
Well, these where Elon has set them up where they can use
Oh, virtual power plant.
virtual power plants where you have the peak power thing. So you could also be available for that, because sometimes it might be more profitable for you to give your power to that system than it would be to even power up your cars for the day.
Yeah.
All kinds
Mm.
of possibilities there, Brian.
That's right. And again, it goes to they need to announce it earlier so that people can get ready to do it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to have if if you announce it later, it's still going to take 9 months, a year to get things going. So it's better to have people signed up. You want to get them signed up. You want to encourage them, and then you want them to get their power, their washing, all that stuff sorted out. Because if I'm going to do Airbnb, like it took people 6 months, a year, 2 years to get rolled onto Airbnb. It's like, oh yeah, I'm making a bunch of money, and then so.
So I've said from the beginning that I thought that when Tesla started doing the Airbnb version of the robotaxis, that they needed to have a package. They needed to have a turnkey package. And at the time, I was really just referring to, well, here's the car, here's the washing, here's the charging facilities we're going to offer, there are opportunities that maybe that they were going to offer. Here's how much you're going to get paid per mile. Here's how we recommend, what hours we recommend, blah, blah, just kind of a booklet that would explain, how to run it as a small business, because let's face it, small business is hard.
Right.
And it might even include some tax information, et cetera. But now there's a whole nother layer. And all of a sudden, my thought is, why wouldn't Tesla offer a package? Why wouldn't they offer or several packages? You know,
Hmm.
here's a package where you get your power walls, your solar. We will install it. We'll install everything. We'll guarantee this much amount of power. You'll also be a part of the virtual power program when if you choose to be. So they could put together a package like that. It could be a pretty darn good moneymaker.
Yes, they support needs to be rolled out. Some obvious places to get this kind of organization, Tesla Owners Club, be Tesla's, taxi owners club, whatever, that would, get these kind of things solved. And then the people who step up to manage Airbnbs, step up to manage vehicles and stuff. So the various, car rental companies, the more private ones as opposed to the Hertz or whatever, need to do that. And then, yeah, so then there's, still the risks associated with the, um, Hertz had a problem where they, didn't roll out right, and then they had problem in the resale of their cars and all that kind of stuff. So it should be, making a lot of money, but in terms of actually doing it, there's um, complexities and also some risks to it.
Yeah, and so if I'm going to pay Tesla 25 cents a mile or 25% of the revenue or whatever the number is going to be, because we don't know that yet. If I'm going to be paying for all of that, it's like a friend of mine got into a franchise years ago, and he calls me, he says, Randy, should I do this franchise deal? And I said, well, when you're buying a franchise, the key to buying a franchise does the franchise owner take on the responsibility of making you successful? And
Mhm.
people are like, what? What do you mean? Why should they take on the responsibility? Well, that's what you're paying the franchise fee for, is they've
Right.
done a successful version or two or three or 10 or 20. And now, you're a separate entrepreneur. You've got different skill sets. You've got different intellect. You've got different personality,
Yeah.
emotional IQ, et cetera. So you may or may not be well suited. But what are
Mhm.
they going to do to help manage you? How are they going to help to encourage you when things are tough, whatever? Are they going to take that role of making sure you're successful? And this
Mhm.
individual heard me, but he was really excited about doing it. So he didn't actually do the due diligence. And this company couldn't have cared less whether he was successful or not. And he lost
Right.
his franchise fee and, ended up having in court to try to
Yeah.
deal with the ongoing franchise. So same thing would be here. I think if I'm going to buy a Tesla or
Mhm.
use my existing Tesla to go out and try to make money on the Airbnb system, I think it's
Mhm.
kind of, I think it's on Tesla to put together a substantial amount
Of
of
support. Yeah.
support. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they have to. Yeah. Otherwise, then they just say, okay, I'm not going to do it because I don't want the complexity of it.
right,
So that means instead of charging 40% of the fee where I'm going to take on the port, insurance, and all that kind of stuff, I'm only going to do 25%.
right,
So the 15% goes to the company, the middlemen, who will take on the role
right.
of doing it. So I think Burger King has some kind of like master franchise
Mhm.
type thing, where basically Burger King, the company doesn't do it, they take less, and then you have these intervening semi-large, and they become pretty large companies,
Yeah.
right? That would then do that, which if Elon and them are thinking long term, would say, I don't want to have that middleman between me and the relationship and whatever, right? That I should take on the responsibility, do the work now,
Mhm.
get it rolled out properly so that there isn't. Otherwise, those middlemen companies can become pretty huge and pretty powerful. If there's all these trillions of dollars rolling through Robotaxi, then you will have a roll-up situation where private equity, the tens of billions of dollars, would then come in and then buy up all the small guys, and then you would consolidate into just like cable TV and the station, the networks, and
Sure.
then some guys end up owning 100 stations and 1,000 stations. The business gravity would have the accumulation, the efficiency to do that.
Right.
So either Tesla takes on the role to make this thing efficient and work,
Hmm.
or someone else will.
Right.
And then they will end up in the future having to bargain and deal with, you see that right now with,
Yeah.
pharmacy, where it's like, they have the big benefit companies, and then there's these
Yeah.
pharma benefit companies that are controlling the whole market,
Yeah.
right? So even though the hospitals are the ones delivering all the value, there's this massive in-between thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So, okay, so that raises another question because you and I have been talking, I think, for a year and a half about the China question, and you were so far ahead on this in terms of taking a look at the Chinese companies that are currently offering some kind of autonomous ride hail, and believing that Baidu and others were probably going to want to buy Tesla vehicles once they were approved for China. And I have said from time immemorial, and I'm sure you agree, that you don't have as much of a benefit there because the driver doesn't cost that much. So getting rid of the driver is not as big a deal in China, and so therefore maybe China wouldn't even be that great a market for Tesla themselves to run their own fleet even if they were able to, even if the Chinese government would let them. Have you got any updates on any of that?
yeah, so the China ride-hailing market is, I think, down at like 50 cents per mile or something like that, versus the $2 per mile, that, or 250 per mile that we charge.
Mhm.
So it is far, far cheaper. So if we're starting out here at $2 or buck 50, we would need to get that to scale. At a million, you'd probably in the buck 50, buck 25 range or something like that. And then get to 5, 10 million. So it would be, a lower priority, a later time when things are more mature, to go at those other markets. But you pretty much saturate the United States first.
Right.
Then you go the best countries in Europe and Australia, Canada, wherever else. And last, you would go to the low cost places in China, Brazil, other places, because they're super duper cheap because the people work for far less. So it's tougher to replace them.
So do you still see the Baidus of the world potentially buying Teslas in order to do their ride hails?
Yeah, yeah, well, it'll happen eventually. Yeah, and they would want to do it, and maybe they'll do it in particular markets where it makes sense. Like, China's got 800 different cities, so the Shanghai market can be different, and Beijing and stuff like that. And then there could be nice big niches where it makes sense to do it. Also, it makes super sense for trucking. We discussed
Yeah.
trucking, that replacing the truck driver, that's a $60,000, $100,000 thing, and you can get like the equivalent of 4 drivers, because you can run them, nearly 24 hours. So that would be something that needs to scale up faster.
Yeah.
Limited again by electricity and energy. Because if I take out 20% of oil, my gasoline for transportation, and then shove that over to electricity, that's a huge infrastructure build. So there's getting these things scaled out, but in terms of like Tesla initially coming out, they can get the million vehicles out there. They can start doing stuff, and they need to then build infrastructure as fast as possible where it makes sense, where it gets the most value. Um, Probably, I would think 20 million to something like that would be 20 million to 50,000 miles each. That's your trillion miles, which is what the estimate of the ARC Invest and others have estimated as the kind of like um, the total ride share market at about a buck.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on the upcoming rollout? That's those are all my questions about the upcoming rollout. In fact, that's five more questions that I didn't have before I started. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anything else
Yeah.
that you're seeing that you might want to share? Nope.
No, I think those are the main things that it's looking like June, the big thing will happen, and seeing exactly how that plays out will be informative and exciting. Yeah.
Except, yes, all of the above with an exclamation point, R2.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Brian, as always, appreciate you coming on, helping out. And to
Yeah.
all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.